Hello. I'm going to be talking about Chapter 4 of Fugitive Landscapes. So kind of a quick overview of this chapter. It basically covers how the borderlands were changed from this like remote, desolate region into more of a modern industrial mining region. But this wasn't just caused by like American companies alone. It was caused by a lot of cooperation between the Americans and the Mexicans, and also by like local entrepreneurs and other people. So it starts by talking about the old mining towns called Cananea and Nacozari, and these two areas had a ton of like valuable materials in them, mainly copper and silver, but they were viewed as kind of like treasure regions, I think, or like treasure areas. They use El Dorado as an example. So basically, like people back then viewed these places as like El Dorado, tons of wealth in the area, and so they were like, okay, let's mine it, all these materials. And so they started building mines and trying to like mine out all this copper and stuff, and it just wasn't really working because they just didn't have the technology like advanced enough to do it. One of the main problems was like transportation. The geography of the region was so rough and hard to navigate that it was just like they just weren't advanced enough to actually successfully do this, so it just kind of didn't work. But then later on, these like entrepreneurs and people, they started realizing like, okay, now we can probably actually make this work. All that wealth and stuff is still in there, and now we actually probably have the technology to make this happen. And so they went back at it, and so the first like main company that was involved in this is an American company called Phelps Dodge, and so they entered Sonora, and instead of like just buying mines and mining all the stuff, they were like, okay, well, the main problem was the transportation, so let's invest in transportation. And so they started building railroads and like machinery and other infrastructure, and they grew into like a huge company because they were able to actually like navigate the area when nobody else really could. And the railroads especially were super important because the railroads especially were super important because they actually ended up connecting Arizona and Sonora, and that made it like super easy to move supplies and like material and copper, and it actually connected the borderlands into just like one economic region essentially. And then the next company that I focused on was called CCCC, or the Cananea Consolidated Copper Company, and this was started by this guy named William Cornell Green. He started out as a rancher, but he eventually went on to make this company. And so he actually relied on like his relationships with people to build the company. So he had really good relationships with both Americans and Mexicans, and that helped grow his business into like this huge, successful business. And it actually transformed the town of Cananea into this like large industrial mining town. But even though these big companies became like super powerful, they never had complete control. And one example of this is the Ojo de Agua grant. So essentially what that was is local landowners used Mexican property laws to like challenge the mining companies, and it kind of showed that even though these corporations had gotten like super big, they still had to work within local laws and traditions. Another example is that people such as, I'm gonna butcher this, Secundino Ahumada and Ramon Diaz they were able to challenge the company. Those were kind of the figures kind of at the forefront of like challenging these companies with those laws. And all that kind of showed, it caused a lot of conflict, and all that kind of showed that like the corporations, they were going to influence the landscape and change the region, but they could not, they could not like actually completely control it. So overall, it just, chapter 4 talked about just the change, the change in this region, from just like this remote region into this industrial, like modern mining area, through a lot of like entrepreneurship and a lot of cooperation between the Americans and the Mexicans. Thank you.